Thank you, Senator Coleman. You mentioned the issue of Iran, and obviously it's very much on our minds. We will be lobbying tomorrow on H.R. 1400 and hopefully a Senate bill that will emerge shortly. Ileana, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the bill and the whole issue of sanctions. You have been the sponsor of several pieces of Iran legislation. Do sanctions work? Does it make a difference? What's the point of passing all these bills? Do they really have an impact at the end of the day?
That's an excellent question, because you are the premier grassroots lobbying organization in the United States. You certainly have a powerful voice, a great leverage in the House and in the Senate with authorizing and appropriations committee, writing letters to the editor, meeting with key members of Congress. But then at the end, what happens? What happens when these bills do become law? What happens to the sanctions legislation, the Iran Freedom Support Act, the Syria Accountability Act? What happens to them? Well, certainly multilateral sanctions are far more effective than unilateral sanctions. That we know. But sometimes we can't wait for other countries to do what they should be doing. So we've got to lead the way. Even if we're the only ones doing the right thing, it's still the right thing. That's what I tell my kids all the time, too. Even if you're alone in doing the right thing, it's still the right thing to do. We've got a responsibilities, a true responsibility as a superpower, as along with Israel's one of the strongest democracies in the world. We'd like to have more company in the sanctions policy, because we'd like for them to do the right thing. You've got Iran, that Norm was just talking about, signed a $16 billion deal with China for the oil and energy sector. That's troubling. A multi-billion-dollar deal with Malaysia, with France's Total company, with another company in Spain. Now, these are the same countries that are in the UN and that are discussing whether or not to have sanctions being applied to Iran. While they don't need another UN Security Council resolution to force them to put sanctions on, they can do it themselves. So why aren't they? Well, they've got a lot of economic investment there. And so that's a great question, Esther, and we ask ourselves, one more sanctions bill, will it really make a difference? I think it does, because it sends a strong message diplomatically that this is where the United States stands. This is where we draw our line in the sand. This is where we say we're not going to deal with these thugs and dictators, like Norm has pointed out. We are the leader internationally, and we show the way by having a strong diplomatic policy, but a strong policy that says we're not going to deal with you because of the pattern of behavior, because your investments are propping up dictators that then those leaders say, we're going to destroy Israel. We don't recognize Israel's right to exist. We're going to continue to fund terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas. We're going to keep invading countries like Lebanon and not respect their sovereignty. I mean, we've got to make a decision as the sole superpower that this is where we stand, this is where our values are, and we'd like to have more company, but even if we have to stand alone, like Eleanor Roosevelt said, even if it's just you, it's better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. And that's what I think the United States does. Thank you.
And in the case of Iran, it really has made a difference. I mean, we do see the impact even of unilateral sanctions.
Already we've seen a lot of the countries. Japan was going to put in a lot more money.
Right.
They're taking that money out. A lot of countries were going to invest in the energy sector. They're pulling out. Why? Because they know that there's going to be a big stick if they continue.
Thank you.